Hello and welcome to another video here on the channel. Today we're taking a look at what I have in this box right here, which is Endless Blading's latest frame offering known as the ARC, A-R-C. And it is a 5-wheel rockered frame, and it's much like the Wizard Advanced frame or some other frames that are similar on the market, although this ARC frame from Endless does differentiate itself from other frames on the market, and I'll get into that when I overview the frame. It's a relatively new offering from Endless, although it's been out for a few months. It's early March when I'm recording this, and I've had the frame since late November. I didn't want to actually test it out though until I had time to sit and make this video with an overview and my initial thoughts. So the rest of the video will be me opening the box, showing you what's inside, covering the overview of how it works, how it differentiates itself from some of the other 5-wheel frames like it on the market, and then I'll mount it on a pair of my boots and we'll give it a shot, and I'll let you know what my initial thoughts are. So stay tuned. Okay, so let's start with checking out what comes in the box. I really did not intend this to be like an unboxing, but we might as well just open the box and show you what comes inside. As you can see, basically there's a card explaining one of the things that I'll be pointing out, which is what's different about this frame from some others, is that there are rockerable axles that come with this frame. And then even another set of different rockerable axles that I additionally purchased, which I'll cover. But you can see it's kind of just telling you on this card here how to set those rockerable axles depending on whether you're using 84mm or 80mm wheels here. These are said rockerable axles. As you can see, the black is important because that's how they differentiate the additional axles I bought. I have a set of the silver as well that I'll be showing you. And I'll show you these axles in a little more detail shortly. And then, of course, you get the rest of the standard, your normal axles that you'd see on the frames. There are 6 of these, obviously, because each of these is used on the 3 middle wheels on either frame. And then, of course, you get the frame itself, or a pair of frames, obviously. And this is what it looks like. I have the 165mm mount version of the frame. These do come in UFS as well, but I don't own any UFS boots, so I have the 165. And as you can see here, there are obviously 5 mounting holes for axles and wheels. You can see that this is notched out and in a different shape. It's not a circle because the axles can be flipped upside down, and I'll show you how that works. Looks like typical Endless build quality. Like, honestly, these things are just, they're built like tanks, and my Endless 90s and Endless 100s are very similar. One thing to note, I don't believe my NN Dragon frames have these additional supports in here. I'll have to double check. But very solid, construction, obviously, coming from Endless. Very similar finish in the silver frame to the other frames that I have. Another important thing to note here is these mounting holes that go, I guess we could call it laterally and longitudinally, because not all boots are created equal, not all spacing is identical. So the next thing I'm going to show here are these rockerable axles, and as I mentioned earlier, I have 2 sets of these. There are these black ones and there are these silver ones. Now the black ones came with the frame, and the frame is, I don't think I mentioned it yet, but I paid $259 US for the frames. I had to buy the silver axles for an additional $12 US to get the additional rockering that I'll show you shortly with 80mm wheels. But you do get a rockered frame and rockerable axles with either 84 or 80mm wheels with these black axles. And let's just go ahead, let's open these up and show you how they work. So unlike your normal axles, these have 2 pieces to them, right? And there's basically a male and a female, and one screws into the other, right? So what you'll notice about these axles is this additional bit that sticks out here. If you stick this in, you'll see that the notch lines up. And more importantly, you'll see that the space between the bottom of the axle, or you know, essentially where it sits, and the frame looks one way with it mounted this way. And right now I have those, the dot is down. So this would actually be for the 80mm wheel setup. Sorry for focusing, having problems focusing here. Now if you take the axle out, and you see that notch right there, if you spin it upside down and put it back in, so that now the dot is up, you see now there's more space between the bottom of the axle and the bottom of the frame. So what about these silver axles that I had mentioned earlier? So basically these work the same way in that they have a dot and they have an up and a down position, just like the black axles, right? But the amount that you see, the difference is different. And so it basically just gives you different rockering capabilities actually with 80mm wheels specifically. If you're using 84mm wheels, again, you have one rockering option. You have it rockered up. And that's why they tell you in the card to put that notch in a specific position, right? By the way, these are the wheels I'm going to be using for this setup. As you can see here, these are Rollerblade Hydrogen Spectres 76mm 85A. And these are Rollerblade Hydrogen, just the regular Hydrogen 84mm 85A. The Hydrogen is my personal favorite wheel. This is the wheel I like most currently. I've never used the Spectres. I'm hoping it's the same wheel compound, and that Spectre is just kind of like the branding for these wheels that come in different colors. You can get them in teal and like purple and gray and maybe like a salmon color or something. One other thing I want to point out about these wheels is that because these are both hydrogen, and this is stated on Endless's website, but they caution you against using wheels that are different profiles. And when I say profile, I mean the shape of the wheel here. Now these hydrogens are what you would call a bullet profile. As you can see, they're kind of pointed at the top here. Not to be confused with something like this Seba Street Invader, which is a rounded profile. So as you can see, it's a little rounder on the top, right? Like the radius of this arc here is a little greater. And then something that I'm actually going to show you in this video, but it's just going to be for diameter purposes. I'm going to mount this 80mm wheel. This is even rounder still. This is very round compared to this, right? And I'm going to be using, again, this to show some rockering with 80mm wheels, but I wouldn't want to mix 80mm, or I wouldn't want to mix this profile with this profile on the wheels. So again, on Endless's website, it cautions against that. And it makes sense because flatland skating involves a lot of edge work, right? You're going to be, you know, doing a lot of this stuff on your wheels, and you don't want it to be inconsistent, you know, between the middle wheels and the end wheels. So that is something to look out for when you are purchasing wheels for these frames, or really any frame that you want to mix wheel sizes with. Make sure you don't also mix profiles. And you probably want to keep the hardness the same as well. Again, that may be a preference thing, but I would assume a good place to start is to make sure that they're all kind of the same hardness. Okay, so I've mounted all 5 wheels, and as I mentioned before, I've got an 80mm wheel in the front and an 84 in the back, and right now that's for demonstration purposes. So to reiterate, hopefully this shows on the camera, that dot is up on the 84mm wheel, and on the 80mm wheel, the dot is down. And what that results in, because they're different size wheels, is the same amount of rocker on either wheel. Now, this thing I'm showing you is not perfectly true. It's not completely flat, but as you can see, if I push all the way down on the front, how much it gets lifted up in the back here is about the same as the front if I push down on the back. Okay, now at the risk of, hopefully this is neither overkill nor confusing, but I've adjusted both of these now. I've set the dot on the back down, which is wrong for an 84 millimeter wheel. So I'll show you why. Now that the dot is down, we basically get an anti-rocker situation. This wheel right here spins while this one's touching, and that is not what you want. You want these first and fifth wheels to be off the ground, not touching the ground. So this is, again, if you're using 84 millimeter wheels, you get one rocker position. You have to do dot up or you don't have a rocker. What you can do with an 80 millimeter wheel specifically is go dot up. I had it dot down before, which would give the same rocker again as the 84 dot up. But if you go dot up with 80, you get an even more dramatic rocker. So if I push all the way down on the frame now, you see how far this comes up. And remember, this wheel is actually lower than it should be. So you get a much more dramatic rocker. There's a decent amount of space. I don't know what it is in millimeters, but it is a pretty significant rocker here. You may be thinking why you may want to do different diameters of 84 versus 80, and this is exactly why. Okay, and this is the last bit of rockering I will show you. But now I have silver axles on both ends, and they're both 80 millimeter wheels. So on the back I have it dot up, and on the front I have it dot down. And that gives us two additional levels of rocker. So obviously when the dot is up, it's higher off the ground. When the dot is down, it's lower off the ground. But this gives you yet another two rockerings. Black axle up is the most extreme rocker for 80 millimeter, and black axle down is the most subtle or least amount of rocker. And then these are the in-betweens, right? The next most extreme would be silver up, silver down, and then black down. Endless has all of this on their website in their setup guide. I will, at the very least, link the guide in the description of this video. But I'll also maybe add a screenshot or something of the information, so it's less confusing. And the other thing I actually never talked about, you can see these wheels are also rockered up. So you've got this third wheel here, right? And the second and fourth wheels are also slightly rockered just a little bit. And so yeah, you can see if I push all the way down on this back wheel, this comes out quite a bit. If I push all the way down this one, comes up quite a bit still, but not as much as this one. So yeah, that's all the rockering configurations. And again, this is what kind of sets this frame apart from some of the other 5-wheel frames like this on the market. I've got this back in the configuration that I'm most interested in, which is the 84 millimeter wheels, which is the most subtle rockering setup. It also allows you to use these 84 millimeter wheels. There's a couple reasons I'm most interested in this. I like the subtle rocker, and I like the idea of the bigger wheels, both for potentially more speed as an all-purpose frame, like an urban frame, or, you know, it's my understanding that a larger wheel, and this is why the Wizard Advanced frame is the way it is, that's the innovation I guess they had with that, is that heel and toe tricks for Flatland tricks are supposedly, I guess, easier when you have larger wheels on the first and fifth positions. By the way, I'm going to be mounting this. I haven't mounted it yet, obviously. I'm going to be mounting it to my FRSL skates. By the way, this right here is my favorite setup I have tried so far since I started skating again 2 years ago. And that is this FRSL boot, the Endless 90 frame, and hydrogen wheels. This is just such a fantastic setup, especially for city skating. It's a great all-around setup. I love it. But anyway, I'm going to do another video specifically on this boot. But that's a video for another time. Let's get this guy mounted on here and go test them out. The rest of this video is basically broken up into a few different styles of like testing I was doing on these frames in my first and second day on them. This is actually the literal first few minutes I was on these frames. I skated up and down the parking lot a couple times, and then I put the camera down and started trying out this Wizard stuff. I've said this on the channel before. Wizard stuff is really cool, and I wish I was better at it. And these frames make me want to get better at it. I said that with the Dragon frames before, but I like these better, and I can't put my finger on exactly what it is. I think the adjective I would use to describe these is smooth. I don't know if it's just the bigger wheels on the front and back, or what it is about these, but they feel better than 5-wheel frames I've tried in the past. They feel swivelly to a point where I feel like I can do these moves with ease and I can progress in this style of skating, but at the same time, completely stable. And yeah, I guess smooth is the word I would use to describe them. And of course, the disclaimer to go along with that is that I am admittedly a novice wizard skater, not claiming to be an authority on that style and all the frames available. Okay, so I used the term smooth when I was describing them and how they felt when I started doing like the wizard moves in the last section. And the adjective I'd use for this section is playful. They really kind of inspire being played with, and which is why I came to this little section here and decided to do a little stair riding, a little jumping. Nothing crazy. I don't want to get hurt. I broke my collarbone at the end of the summer. My wife and I just welcomed our second child less than 3 months ago, so getting injured right now is just not something I'm interested in. At the same time, like I said, these frames make me want to play on them. I really had a lot of fun at this spot. And to be perfectly honest, this is not a style of skating I do a ton of. And when I say style of skating, I mean like jumping off of things. Even if it's a knee-high ledge I'm jumping off of. I jump, I ride stairs. But I don't do, I'm not Sean Unwin jumping up on 20-foot ledge that's, 2 inches wide with both skates kind of a thing. So it's fun to kind of step out of my zone a little bit and play around on obstacles. So enjoy the next few minutes of me doing that. And by the way, I never felt, one of the reasons I was able to play in this area here is that I never felt unstable on these frames. They feel good riding downstairs. They feel good jumping. They feel good landing. And because they're rockered, you've got a ton of very precise control. So, I could go around like a rounded ledge or something on these. Yeah, they're just a ton of fun, and they feel very precise, and they just feel like a great tool to do this kind of sessioning with, for sure. Okay, and these last few clips are the general urban skating I was talking about. You know, I'm on an empty college campus right now, not in like the city or anything, but I can do the kind of skating I would be doing in those environments here, but you know, in a nice, safe test environment. This clip in particular is a pretty good one because I went up a hill and I just said I was going down a hill, and this hill gives me a lot of speed. I can go backwards, I'm jumping around, and I get to get a sense of the speed you get on these frames. And honestly, the speed both downhill and on like flat road honestly surprised me on these frames. They don't feel slow. A 5-wheel frame with 76 millimeter wheels in the middle, you would think, oh, these are going to be slow, I'm not going to have fun on these. Not the case. And then in this section of this clip, I'm going uphill. And, you know, you can see I'm doing a ton of crossovers. This is the way I get up hills. And it never felt like I was on a frame that was holding me back from skating the way I want to or the way I usually skate. If you're familiar with the channel, you know how I like to skate. It's a lot of high intensity, high heart rate kind of skating, you know? And a big long frame with 5 wheels may feel like it would hold you back, especially if those wheels are small. But I really never felt that way. I honestly think this is a viable urban frame. I'm excited to take these in other urban environments. I'm excited to take them in the city, really, honestly. Quite a joy. I really was not... That might be the thing I was surprised the most by, is how good they feel as just a general skating frame. I did not expect them to feel as good and stable and fast and fun as they do. So yeah, enjoy these last couple clips. I think I go down a similar hill here. I think I go down the same hill in this clip, but I do it more backwards. So yeah, I'm going down, I think I end up going down the same path. I don't know why I did the same path as in the previous clip. I don't know why I was doing so much backward skating, but honestly, it's like a testament to how I felt in the frames. This is literally, I don't know, 35 minutes into putting the frames on for the first time, and I'm, you know, cruising down hills backwards on them. And I wouldn't be doing it if I didn't feel comfortable, so I think it's a testament to how great the frames feel. This actually right there where my foot slipped out, and I smile about it. I think that was due to the rocker. Not the rocker's fault though. I think it was my, you know, me getting used to the rocker. I think front to back, these frames feel super stable. Left to right, they feel less stable than my Endless 90s, but that's not to say they're unstable. They are less stable than my Endless 90s, if that makes sense. Which makes sense because they are more rockered than my 90s. And so I think my brain needed to just adjust, and I guess more really, my legs and feet needed to adjust to the rocker just a little bit. But honestly, by the end of this very first session on these frames, I was adjusted to it. It really wasn't a problem. I at no point did I feel unstable, like you know, I shouldn't be going down this hill. That being said, would I recommend a rockered frame and bombing down hills to like a beginner? Probably not. But if you're an advanced skater and you have good control over your skates, I don't see it being an issue. So overall, my general thoughts on these frames is that they're great. I've spent 5 sessions on them now. These first 2 you see in this, you know, in this, I guess, overview video, initial thoughts, as well as the past 3 days, including today. I've used them for my lunchtime cardio urban skate that I do, you know, for fun and for exercise. And I want to reiterate, I don't feel like I need different frames to get that same experience. Now, again, that's not saying, I still feel like the Endless 90s might still be my favorite frame that I have. But that is not because these aren't good frames and these aren't good as a general skating frame. Would I suggest this if general skating, if you never want to do Flatland style skating? Probably not. I would probably say get yourself some Endless 90s or Endless 100s. But if you're interested in like the Flatland stuff at all, but don't want to lose completely that urban style as well, or don't want to have multiple boots, etc., I think these are a great option, honestly. So if you have any specific questions, feel free to drop a comment below. Otherwise, thanks for stopping by, and I'll see you in the next video.